Well, howdy folks, welcome to the Camp Wounded Dog Workshop. This is the first tutorial in a series of, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 if you're going to be doing the do-it-yourself kit for the 316 Arc Tribute. I was going to do one like 5-hour tutorial, but I thought everybody would fall asleep after the first 10 minutes. So we're going to try to keep these short and sweet. This is the do-it-yourself part of building a lantern. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of walk you through it. What we have to do is harvest parts off of these two fonts. We're cutting a hole in the top of the CL font, and we're harvesting the bung cap out of a 220. Now, the thing is, there's a couple things to talk about here. I'm going to use the simplest tools I can use to do this. Many of you guys got more sophisticated shops, so you'll know how to improve the technique on this. If you have a drill press, it's much easier to cut these holes. I'm going to use a hand drill though, but normally in production I use a drill press. Now, if you don't have hole saws, you probably don't want to go out and spend 40 bucks for 2 hole saws and a mandrel and all that stuff. So I've got it down where you only need to buy one or use one hole saw. What you need is a 2 3/4 inch hole saw. I'm using it in my big old Milwaukee drill here. The first thing you want to do is deal with your CL font. As it comes to you, it'll most likely have this brass up tube threaded on it. What you want to do is cut that down. There's probably going to be a nut on there. Leave the nut on. Cut it down so it's smooth. What you're going to do, your hole saw most likely has a starting drill that you're going to put in the center of this, drill down, and you will drill a guide for the rest of the cut with your hole saw. So we're going to do that right now. Now sometimes that happens and it hurts like hell. Probably a smart guy would figure out a way to anchor that. When I use my drill press, I do anchor this. We're getting there. If you kind of wobble it as you cut, your cutting surface is smaller and it's less likely to jump like that. We're starting to get through. There we go. Oh, duh. The important thing, I'm so irresponsible. Whenever you use power tools, or wash your car, or ride a bicycle, or do the dishes, you got to have the proper safety equipment. You got to have something to protect your eyes, and something to protect your ears from the noise, like maybe cotton swabs you stick in. So, I'm telling you, protect your eyes, protect your ears. Alright, that's it. Now, what we have here is the start of your font. You need to harvest the bung cap from your 220. I've already harvested this one. And I'm going to show you something here. It's really critical how you deal with getting this bung cap. I'm going to move this over here. The cap has, the cap has 2 radiuses, and you want to protect this bottom radius. It curves down into the body of the font, and I got an exaggerated drawing here someplace. It looks like this. All right, this radius you want to maintain. You want to keep the integrity of that, and I'll show you why later it's critical. All right, now if you got the drill press and hole saw, you can use your hole saw to cut it. Make sure your hole you're cutting is bigger than that radius. You got to save that radius. If you use a hole saw, it'll come out nice and sweet like this one. If you don't have a hole saw, don't panic. All you need is your cutoff wheel. Now the way you do this, you want to be careful. I make a couple linear cuts in it and just get the whole bung cap out. I harvest that, and you end up with something that looks like this. All right, so here we go. Oh, another safety tip. I've already done on this one, but before you start cutting with a grinder on your font, you want to do a sniff test. If you can smell raw fuel, or if when you take this apart there's fuel in it, dump it out, wash it. Give it a good rinse with soapy water. All right, you don't want vapors in here that can ignite. Now, I've never had a font ignite on me, but I have had spilled white gas on my workbench ignite from sparks, so watch out for that. Now, if you're using a cutoff wheel, this is the tricky cut, because this radius you want to save kind of flows into the rebate for the filler cap. So be sure to cut low enough that you don't knock that down. All right, there you go. Now, if you're really careful and you don't make your cuts deep into the lantern, you can do all kinds of stuff with what's left. Tool tray. Very nice, that way you don't feel like you killed the lantern for nothing. Or, something we just started doing are bird feeders. So if you've got a dead lantern, rusted or not, don't throw your font away, make a bird feeder. The environment will appreciate you, and it won't end in 10 years like they say it's gonna. Alright, so, now, you got this. How do you deal with that? With a good pair of shears, you just cut it down. Now, as you're cutting, I'm not going to do this whole thing. I'm just going to do this for purposes of illustration. You want to be careful to not cut that radius off. You can see it, depending on how filthy the inside of your tank is, you can see that radius on the inside. So if you're cutting, be careful not to clip into that. Leave it a little long is better than cutting it short. Now, alright, so anyway, you cut this thing in a circle, you go back, I do a rough cut like this, then I go back and do a second cut where I'm paying real close attention to where this radius ends. Alright, now, for purposes of illustration, I'm not going to finish that off, I'm going to use one I already did. This is your bung cap, and this, again, this is the lip. You got to keep that little downturned lip. Now, if you put it on your font like that, you're going to notice that the bung cap extends past the font. So what do you got to do? Because this is going to be under pressure and you're soldering this, you want to get as much meat, metal to metal, as you can. And I discovered this by accident, but it really works good. You take a grinding disc Brass works a little bit differently than steel. Brass is more malleable. So heat and pressure will actually form the brass, whereas steel will just make sparks and, you know, start your workshop on fire if you're not careful. Anyway, so I hope it shows on the video. You can probably see it's not cutting the brass off, it's turning the edge in. It's giving you a wider lip. And you can actually feel it. If you feel like this, you can feel where it's curved in. So you want to keep doing that. Keep testing. Burn a little test, burn a little test, burn a little test until this lip runs smooth into your font. Okay? Right now, the hole is smaller than this lip. But when you get your hole pushed down to the side, as you push it down, the diameter of the hole increases. So when you get it to the point where it's nice and snug like that, that's all you got to do. Alright, so that's harvesting the parts off of the font. The next tutorial is going to cover how to solder these together. And also, most guys aren't set up for nickel plating. Now you can ship this off to one of us to have it nickel plated, but why horse around like that when you can do something at home? There's an old school technique of protecting metal called tinning, T-I-N-N-I-N-G. And what you actually do is put a very light layer of solder on both sides of these. While it's hot, you wipe it down with steel wool. You get a nice shiny surface. This isn't going to show anyway because your collar is going to go around it. But what it does is it protects from rust. Your font is brass, but your bung cap is still steel. So if you want your great-great-grandchildren to appreciate your handiwork, you don't want it to rust out. So we'll talk about how to tin, how to solder, and make this all one beautiful unit. Now, one more thing I forgot. If you're going to use a drill press to cut your 220 bung cap out, your drill is going to be much smaller than the opening on the bung cap. If you try with the hole saw, it's just going to rattle all over the place and ruin your lantern. I had a dead valve. So what I did with it, I sacrificed the valve and I cut it off about here and about here. And then what it is, it's a bung plug. It fits right in there. And then I drilled it out so the interior diameter of that is the same as the drill on my hole saw. That way it keeps it centered and doesn't chatter around. Okay, I think that's about all I got to tell you today. Alright, in a couple days we're going to do the soldering. As of yet, nobody has purchased a kit. I think it's because they might be a little afraid of what's going on. But it's simpler than most folks would think. And if you got a halfway decent garage with tools, you can probably get this done and save yourself a couple $100. All right, that's it. Thanks for, there's my patriotic message. And thanks for stopping by Camp Wounded Dog Workshop. All right, folks, bye.